Today, I want to talk about a free-to-play game that I picked up on Steam recently. It was a really fun and unique experience, and I thought it'd be a really cool game to make a video on. So the game is called Evo Wave, and it's a 3D platformer, and it's kind of open world as well. The game really feels like it's a mix between Mario 64 and the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games from the PlayStation 1 and 2 era, which I just love those games. Your character has a lot of different movement abilities, which allows you to be kind of creative and choose how you want to overcome certain areas in the game. The maps are pretty big. They're big enough to have certain areas where you can explore and find hidden items. They're not the size of like a Fallout game or like a Skyrim map, obviously, but they are big enough for you to have to explore, and you're rewarded for exploring them as well. And then lastly, there's just a lot of charm that goes into the game. The dialogue options with the NPCs, I think a lot of them are just really funny and clever. There's a ton of game references and meme references as well. And you can just tell that a lot of thought went behind how your character was going to interact with NPCs throughout the game, which I really appreciate that. So if that sounds cool to you, then like I said, it's a really fun and unique game. I think it's definitely worth your time. It's free to play, it's on Steam, and it only takes you a couple hours to beat. Now, if you want to hear more about the game, then stick around, and I'm going to do a more detailed analysis basically of the different aspects of the game. The game starts off with our antagonist setting a virus loose on the game world, and what this virus does is it basically reverts the game world back to a simpler or previous state. So as the main character, it's going to be your job to find specific components throughout the maps in the game in order to help restore the game world back to its rightful state. So that's going to bring us into the graphics for the game. And this is the first game that I've actually seen do this, and I'm sure we just added so much work for the devs to do this, but I really appreciate it. After each world, you find a new component, and once you find that component, it upgrades the game's graphics to a totally different and improved graphic design, I guess you'd say. So the game starts off, and it's obviously a reference to the old school, like original games like Pac-Man or Donkey Kong from 1981, to where everything is black, characters and then objects are just highlighted by a neon light or just a bright light. And then once you do another graphic upgrade by finding the next component in the next world, then the graphics in the game are kind of upgraded to maybe like a PS2 level. It's definitely more detailed, but if you're looking at NPC's face, for instance, you can tell that there's not much, detail there really. And then finally, once you do the last upgrade by going into the next world and finding the last component, and it's generally modern day graphics. I mentioned earlier that your character has a lot of different movement abilities. Basically, you have just the normal jump, then you unlock a double jump, and you have a spin move, which is how you attack enemies in the game. So if you spin and then jump, that gives you a even higher jump. And then later on in the game, you unlock a gliding spin ability. Basically, it's your spin attack, but if you do it while you're in air, then it allows you to glide. So you can make these kind of like longer jumps. And then lastly, you unlock this thing called a glitcher, and there are certain obstacles in the world to where you can either phase through one or the other. So when you add in all of those, you can be just really creative and just really cool. It makes it just fun to just jump around the world and just kind of do like some hardcore parkour stuff. Just jump in between tree and light pole and stuff like that, and I really enjoyed it. And then we have the combat. Like I mentioned, you have just a spin move for enemies in the game, and the combat is definitely lacking. I would say my only real constructive criticism for the whole game is just the combat, because it's just very basic. So I would have liked to see at least another move. It seems kind of obvious, but like I felt like jumping onto a character, like in Mario, like jumping on a character's head would have been able to do damage. I think that would have been something pretty simple. But having said that, the combat is not the focus of this game at all. It's just kind of there. Whenever you first enter into each world, you see a couple cinematic kind of like panning shots of each world, and that is exactly what they did back in Tony Hawk Pro Skater games, which I loved. Whenever you first got to a new area, you'd see some painting shots, and you could kind of see where like some of the letters of skate were. I really like the quest design in the game. You go into each game world and you have just one goal of trying to find this one specific component, which is going to help you move the story forward and help restore the game back to its rightful state. But once you get into each world, then you are going to meet a bunch of different characters, and you're going to get a bunch of different side missions that you have to complete first in order to get that component that you went in looking for. And that's another area that really reminded me of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games. It was just like going around and skating around in those worlds and finding this guy and he wants you to get the combo letters, or find this guy and he wants you to do a kickflip over 5 different characters, you know, running around the map or something like that. Next, I want to talk about the game references in Evo Wave, and there are a lot of them. In the first world that you get to explore, there's a kind of puzzle or area that's an obvious reference to the original Donkey Kong from 1981, to where there's ramps and there's some ladders, and there's a huge red gorilla, which is Donkey Kong, and he's rolling barrels down at you, and you have to jump over them. And I thought that was just a really like fun and cool reference. Also, there's these items in the game called fact sheets. You find these by exploring the map, and they're going to be in hidden areas. Once you find those, you can take those to a certain NPC in the world. He's going to give you like an Easter egg, or he'll tell you kind of like some interesting facts about an old game console or about an old game. They reference the original Pac-Man, and they name the different like kind of ghost characters. They each have different characteristics. They also talk about which consoles have been like more popular. And then lastly, I mentioned that the NPCs in the game have really cool dialogue. Some you can actually kind of go into a dialogue screen with them. Others will just kind of have a dialogue box pop up above their head whenever you run by them. Almost all of them are going to be game references. A guy asks your character for to reference a good mechanic for his car, so then your character tells him like Ratchet or something like that. There's another character that says that he's going to go visit his cousin in Vice City. And it's just a bunch of just like fun and stupid stuff like that. They don't really tell you the game, but if you know the game that they're referencing, then I think you'll appreciate that. The soundtrack for the game is basically kind of like a synthwave, retro wave, and I love that kind of music. There's some that are just upbeat and it feels kind of more like an 80s like action flick, and then there's other where it's just totally chill. There's also one map to where you're on a beach and you just have this sunset with like a big lighthouse in the background, and it's the most synthwave thing that's ever been synthwave. It was just another element to the game that was just incredibly well done. So overall, the game is nostalgic. The movement and the sandbox in general is great. The maps are interesting and fun to explore as well, and the game just overall has a lot of charm. You can tell the devs just really love gaming in general because there's just so many different references, and just every aspect of the game is just so well done. And eventually I would love to see a full version of this game release, something with like 8 hours of gameplay or even 20. That would be amazing, and I'd buy it in a heartbeat. Hopefully you guys like it as well. Give it a shot. I think it's definitely worth your time. And finally, thank you for watching.